Didn't I say quit playing with me like that?
Baby, I'm going live. What's up, family? I'm gonna go over some litigation. I'm gonna go over some litigation strategies, right? So, but I want to talk to you about certain particular information so that I can share with y'all how to be thinking about this information when we start talking about um, etymology of certain words. And I want us to understand certain words. So like the word resident, so that we can understand what is that saying when we're dealing with this stuff. So I started a little bit 5 minutes late. So I want us to go into certain definitions of words so that I can set this up correctly with the language so that we understand when you go into court how the court is viewing you, right? So let's tap into some of the language, right? So one of the words that I want us to look at is resident. I want us to look at the word resident, right? When you looking at res is dealing with trust property. So res is a Latin word used in various phrases in English. Often, shh, I'm on live. I'm sorry, family. Give me 1 second. Hey, do me a favor, Kenny. Do me a favor. Give that to your sister. That. So when we talk about res, it's a Latin word once used in various phrases in English, often in legal language, where it means the condition of something. The matter is hand or point at issue, literally thing. See, re. For example, res ipsa liquidator. The thing speaks for itself. Res judicata, a point decided by competent authority. So when we understand what res is when we dealing with trust law, I want you to understand is dealing with trust, right? So let's look at res from a Black's Law dictionary, right? Would y'all take her in there, go in there? Or I'm gonna take the phone, mama. Would y'all do me that favor? So let's look at the word res as it relates to trust. And I'm gonna show y'all the different types of things that you need to understand with the word so we can break this down. Res. I want to go to this and then I want to go to um, res. So let's go to here. Let me show y'all what res is in Black's laws. Okay, res, Latin, civil law, a thing, an object, as a term of law. This word has very wide and extensive significance, signification, including not only things which are objects of property, but also such as are not capable of individual ownership. Okay, and Old English law it is said to have a general import comprehending both corporal and incorporeal things of whatever kind, nature, or species. Res by according to by modern civilians is meant everything that may form an object of right in opposition to persona, which is regarded as subject of right. Res, therefore, is in general meaning compromise actions of all kinds, while in its restricted sense is comprehended every object of right except actions. Um, Macro Roman law. This is reference to fundamental divisions of the institution that law relates either to persons, to things, or to actions. So remember, your status is your relationship between persons, places, and things. So I want y'all to understand that your status once again. So when they call you or break up the word res, right? When you hear somebody talk about trust res, they're talking about trust property. So res, then we go to the word ident. So we broke down the word identification or identity. Res, right? Property or a thing identified. So when we look at the word and let's put it up here on the screen. Res, ident, right? I want y'all to look at the word in a compound sense, understanding, right, what's going on. So let me share the screen. So when we look at it, I want you to look at this. So it's saying property, right? I want you to look at it from not from the true meaning of the word. It's really saying property identified. So when we talking about the straw man, they are identifying the property. You are in possession of property, which is their credentials, their social security number, their birth records, all of their records. So they identify that as residential property. Residential, trust property identified. So when you go to the IRS, right? I need y'all to understand when you're dealing with the IRS. I need y'all to understand something, right? When you're dealing with the IRS, the IRS is looking at you, right, from this standpoint, and most people ain't understanding this. Um, they have what they call a control number, the last four digits. So let me pull this up before we get started in the litigation. So, but I want to show you more. Internal Revenue Control Number. So we're gonna go Internal Revenue Service use of control numbers. Okay. Using the correct controlling. So what is a name control? So let's go here. Search, right? Let's go search. Control numbers. Let's just go here.
which one was like?
Hey, wait. Y'all got to get out of here, please. I'm internal, internal revenue service control numbers. Let me see if I can pull that up. So, what I want y'all to understand while I'm trying to pull it up, it's not coming up using. We got a bunch of stuff. Um, exempt organization. I like this. Hold on, let me share the screen. I want to show y'all stuff, right? But what I want to tell y'all, right? The last four digits of the of the Internal Revenue Service, these they use those as control numbers. They use them as a Jazariah. Hold on 1 minute, family. So I want to show y'all. So when I really do the advanced classes and show y'all other stuff, I'm trying to build up information. So I want y'all to understand what is a control number. Let me see if I can pull this up. I like this right here. I want to go through exempt organization revenue procedures. Want to see that. This revenue procedure update by current list. I want to post this in the I want to post this link in the thing. I'm gonna post this. Y'all need to look at this. So this talk about exempt entities, right? So I really want to break this down. So let me go here. I'm gonna see if I can put this in here. I'm gonna break this down. You know, I got the second part of the link. If you hit this other part, you can go to there's two parts. You got the YouTube link and the StreamYard link. Kanu, if you go back to Messenger also. So I'm gonna put this in the chat. Islam family. So that's something that y'all can look at. But uh, I want y'all to understand what a control number is. I want to look up control. I want to know what the control number is. Internal Revenue Control Number. Oh, okay. Let's look at definition of of control number. I want to look at that. So let me see if I can pull up that definition. Okay. So I want to show y'all why this is very important to understand when you come into the courtroom. What are they looking at? I'm going to recap. So they try to determine as that's why they're calling you a resident, because under trust law, res is property of the trust and identified. So they saying property identified. So you are looked at as property of the trust. So when you claim yourself as that you are a resident of the state, you are trust property. I want you to understand that you are trust property. When we look at these words and how they manipulate these words, how that works. So let me go. Apologize, family. Let me break this down. So um, through the process, let me show y'all. I'm trying to get back to this so we can understand how they're making. I don't know why it's not coming up this time. Tax of alien individuals status J1. That's just another exempt update. Let me go. Control number, freedom of information. Uh, they don't want to. For some reason, it's not. It's not trying to pull up. But they have a section where they talk about in the IRS code, in the IRS manual, they talk about these control numbers, how the internal revenue control numbers, how they obtain these numbers, how this is how they can identify you. This is how they got these control numbers. So I was trying to pull up the definition of the Internal Revenue Code control numbers. Let me see if I can pull it up in the United States Code. Let's go United. Let me see if I can pull it up. Internal Revenue Code control number. Let me see if I can pull it up that way. Let me see if I can pull it up. Okay. I don't know. Control group of corporations, types of control groups for purpose. This control group of corporations meaning group of which is a parent control special. Now this some good information, but I'm trying to bring it up. I found it in the Internal Revenue Codes, but for some reason it's not trying to internal. I was trying to get this pulled up because this is something. Let's see, United States Code internal. Um, let's see, Internal Revenue Code define control number. It might turn into. Oh shit! I'm gonna do it again. Hold on. I think I found it. Okay. So, tax code regulation, official guidance, um, caution, treasury tax, other sources of pertaining to treasury. I was trying to get this up, and I had trouble finding it. I had it up at once before. I'm just trying to show y'all how these. It might be in um, to internal control numbers. I'm trying to see what's RCNs. No, that's not it. It might be under the United States codes. Let me see if I can pull it up. But I wanted y'all to see this because I had it. Um, I want y'all to look at it. Definitions. Let's see. So definitions. Oh, cookies. Okay. See, it got a bunch of definitions. I mean, I don't I don't even see it. So we're gonna forget about it because I can't find it, family. I was trying to get into showing y'all, right, what the what a control number is defined by the Internal Revenue Service, so you guys can get this. So let me speed along through this so I can teach y'all some litigation strategies and we can go through some other definitions. So I want to show you this, right? So let's go on to, let me see this. No, it's not charities, that is. I want to show y'all some other definitions. I had it already. Okay, so let's go here. So let's talk about religion, family, right? Let's talk about religion. So we're going to go here, right? Religious, res religious, right here. So when we talk about church and state, when you get your religious exemption, right, and that number is identified by the Internal Revenue Service, and when you get your tax exemption number, it's going to show, right? It says things pertaining to religion. In Roman law, especially burial places which were regarded as sacred and could not be the subject of commerce. You understand what I'm saying? I want to tell y'all once again, it says res religious. We're talking about a religious trust. Things pertaining to religion. In Roman law, especially burial places where were regarded as sacred and could not be subjected to commerce. So, why is King L. Bay going over this under under res as under a religious trust? So the court, they don't got jurisdiction. It's not subject to commerce as it relates to their jurisdiction. Res sacra. In civil law, sacred things consecrated by the pontiff to the service of God, such as sacred edifices and gifts or offerings, right? Chalice, crosses, censers, right? Res sanctia. In civil law, holy things such as the walls and gates of a city, right? Walls were said to be holy because any of the offenses against them was punished capitally. So, what I want y'all to understand how to use your religious, right? So, a lot of people talk about public and private. They only can deal, the courts can only deal in public and private situations. The religious situation automatically give you, I showed you where you got immunity. Immunity, another word for immunity is exemption, and vice versa. So when y'all understand this, when you look up this word under Black's law, you can understand it says could not be subject of commerce. So, like, for example, if you're selling religious material, it can't be subject to commerce. I'm going to show you how to use the religious protection to give you the what? Exemption you need. Right? And how do you come into court and get your remedy? Right? Understanding these things. By having the proper what? Documentation. Having the proper documentation to identify you when you go to court. This is why you're going to have certain things from the Internal Revenue Service utilizing your religious EIN number which is going to give you your stuff, right? I can't pull it all up because the IRS is closed on Saturday, but I already did a class on this. So let's start getting into the litigation part, right? And let's talk about the scope and the rules of criminal procedure, especially if you're going through certain things. But I want to show you that all this stuff is civil in nature. I want to show you that all of this stuff is civil in nature, family. It's all civil in nature, right? So let's go over this and let's look at it. So let me show you, right? And I know I try to get this stuff a little more prepared, but the stuff that I'm showing you today is going to be it's going to help a lot of people, right? Civil procedures. I want y'all to understand there's only one form of action, right? Rule. There shall be one form of action, and there shall be only one form of action, and it shall be known as a civil action. So, regardless if you in a criminal court or anything, you're dealing in a civil action. So, I want to talk about how do you deal with the court and how you understand what you're going to put together when you get into the court. The first thing you must do, you're required to give notice before you come in the courtroom. Do not come in the courtroom without giving notice of how you're going to appear. It's very important that you understand this. It's very important. So let's go into commencement of an action, right? Let's go into this, right? Because it's all civil in nature. So I want y'all to understand this stuff when we talk about due process. So commencement of an action, venue. A civil action is commenced by filing a complaint with the court. If the service is obtained within 1 year from the such filing upon a name or defendant, or upon an incorrect name defendant whose name is later corrected pursuant to this is civil, or upon a defendant identified by a fictitious name whose name is later corrected pursuant to this Rule 15. Limited appearance by attorney. An attorney role may be limited in scope as authorized under professional rule of conduct if that scope is specified. Would you? It says, so it tell you right here, if that scope specified described in a notice of limited appearance, stating that the limited appearance has been authorized by the party for whom the appearance is made and filed in service with Civil Rule 5 prior to or at the time of such appearance. So a lot of us, when we get into the courtroom, family, we don't know how to deal with this, right? So a lot of us don't put in of attorney. You know, your attorney can have limited appearance, right? The attorney limited appearance terminates without the necessity of leave of the court upon a filing notice. A notice of completion of limited appearance filed and served upon all parties, included a party from whom the appearance was made in accordance to the civil rule. If there is no objection within 10 days of service of this notice, then no no entry by the court is necessary for determination of the limited appearance to take effect. So this is the purpose, okay? When understanding how to properly go into a venue, you got to give notice so they can. You try to get them to determine and correct your status. If you don't tell them how you coming, then they don't know how to perceive you. And then they're going to automatically presume what kind of status you're coming in. They're going to use the presumption of law and put you in as a resident and that you're coming in under a territory or personum in realm jurisdiction. They're going to treat you accordingly because you never gave them the proper notice of appearance. How you come to appear or how you're appearing in front of the court. Now it's talking about venue. Any action may be venue commenced and decided in any court in any county. When applied to the county and municipal courts, counties as used in this rule shall be construed where appropriate as the territorial limits of those courts. I want y'all to pay attention. It says as the territorial limits of those courts. Why is they saying territorial limits of those courts? If you understand and watch my prior videos, I broke it down and I talked about what these counties and everything, these states are broken up into districts. There are 11 districts and you're dealing with the territory. They are districts. And how do they get territorial jurisdiction? Because you're dealing in contract law. The proper venue lies in any one or more of the following counties. The county in which the defendant resides, the county in which the defendant has his or her principal place of business. I want you to understand, principal place of business, right? So they saying, right, that you created a business and you the principal, right? A county in which the defendant conducted activities that give rise to the claim for relief. I want you to understand that. A county in which a public officer maintains his or her principal office if suit brought against the officer and the officer's official capacity. A county in which the property or any part of the property is situated if the subject of the action is real property or tangible personal property. They're telling you how they're coming with these claims. And see, this is the thing. They're coming in and they're telling you all the different ways of how these are minimum contacts. So you have to understand this. And so this is why I argue due process of law. And we're going to get in that because it's not going to take that long. Right? So I'm trying to show y'all this. Right? And y'all need to go over this in relationship to what you're doing. As to understanding the venue you in, because they're trying to determine. So, like, if you got an Ohio birth certificate, that birth certificate belongs to Ohio. That's property of Ohio. If you got a Ohio driver's license, that is property of Ohio. That's the contract, the logo, all of that belongs to Ohio. If you got any of their property, it belongs to them. They got jurisdiction over the property. Any contract with their logo, all of that. So determine on the subject matter, which is everything to determine, they have to then determine the proper venue based on the property or the other things that you're doing. If you start a business and you register to the state, Secretary of State, you created a business, that's your principal place of business. They got jurisdiction, right? You got a driver's license, they got jurisdiction. You got a birth certificate, and you didn't do all the following things, they got jurisdiction, right? you receiving public benefits from that state that got jurisdiction, right? These are all the things that come under minimum contact that I broke down in my previous videos to show you how they obtain the jurisdiction. So now let's go into the due process issue, and I'm going to show you how to deal with the courts. And we're going to talk about the United States Constitution real quick and how to use these things properly. And I'm going to show you how to deal with these people and get this stuff really understanding how to deal with this stuff and get it over with. So let's talk about this, right? And let's share the screen. So we're going to talk about due process, and we're going to talk about, and the reason why I want to teach y'all this so y'all can understand. And we're going to, so the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise. Now, I just showed you, when you talk about res religious, right? They talk about religious property. They ain't got no jurisdiction. So, if all your documentation are religious documents, and you set up your institution as a religious institution, and through your 9A, however you set it up, if you don't, especially if you don't use the Social Security number, if you got a 9A number and you set it up and you set up a church or whatever, and you then utilize how to expand that, now they got to recognize you as a religious institution. They can't exercise jurisdiction over that. This is in their constitutional fold. So how would you use this, right? You would get everybody need a certified copy of the Constitution. Why do you need a certified copy of the Constitution? Because when you go in there, you're not going to argue the Constitution. You're going to use it as an exhibit, as evidence. You're going to argue your religious law, your memorandum of law, your religious practice. You're going to tell them who you are and what you are according to your religious rights. And then you're going to have an affidavit to support your memorandum of law. And then you're going to use the Constitution as an exhibit where they have a prohibition of denying you your free exercise of your religious rights, especially if you're not in the public domain and doing anything to encumber or encroach upon them. Right? This is the thing. But we got to go down to the Sixth Amendment, in which y'all need to understand how to deal with this, right? Under the Sixth Amendment. Now, when we talk about criminal cases dealing in criminal procedures, I'm going to do a part 2 to this so y'all can get a better understanding. So it says Amendment 6, in all criminal prosecution, it says in all, I want you to see these words, in all criminal prosecution, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy trial and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and this and district. They tell you, an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law. So remember, I told you, all the states is broken down into districts. So you have a bundle of districts. You have 11 districts. And to be informed of the nature and cause of accusation. So a lot of times they're going to tell you the cause of accusation is a statute, a code. But you want the nature. What is the nature? They got 4 jurisdictions. They only got common law, equity, maritime, and amity. I'm going to repeat this. Y'all can check through your constitution yourself. They got amity, maritime, common law, and equity. Them are the only four jurisdictions. They got to tell you the nature. If they refuse to tell you the nature, they violated due process. And we're going to go up to due process. To be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So, what you got to understand, you can get your religious counsel, right? But I want you to understand they got to tell you the nature. So they can't just say, well, you was charged with this revised code, Oklahoma revised code, such and such and such. They got to tell you the nature. That's the cause. They got to tell you if this admiralty. So if they tell you, you ask them if is this criminal or civil, and they tell you that this is a criminal action, then the only two criminal actions is conferred under law. That's common law, and there's common law and admiralty. Them the only two aspects. So if they tell you if it's common law, right, then, right, we got to look at the law. They got to then allow you to be able to get a defense according to the common law. They can't reach to no statute then. That's just to qualify all statutes. Now, if they say, if it's admiralty, right, now they got to show you the contract. And both of them, they still got to show you a contract. That's how you kill all of this. And then it says, right, we're going to look at due process. No person shall be held to answer for a capital. I want y'all to look at this real carefully. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime. So, what are they talking about? Capital. So, if you talk about a capital crime, they talking about really vicious crime. But also, you can look at the word capital, and your names is in all caps. So they done converted and twisted all of this stuff under the 14th Amendment citizenry and changed the things. And this is where the connotative and denotative language come in. They just constantly manipulation of words to keep the people confused, right? So it says, no person shall be held to answer for capital or otherwise infamous crimes, right? Unless on presentment or indictment of grand jury, except in cases arising on land or naval forces, right? Or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. No person shall, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, and nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, I want y'all to look at this real good. Why am I going over this real good? And we're going to go over the 14th Amendment too, so y'all can understand this due process. It don't say, it says, nor private property shall be taken for public use without just compensation. What I tell you about religious property, they can't touch it. The language in here do not allow them to touch religious property. Religious property is off limits. Once again, religious property is off limits There is no constitutional grounds they can take religious property. It is outside the scope of the Constitution. I'm going to say this again. It is outside the scope. So let's go to the 14th Amendment. This is the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states where they reside. No person shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Remember, I want you to say, it says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. What do we talk about this word? It's exemption. You have a religious exemption. So if in the Constitution, if you enforce your religious rights under due process of law, they don't got no jurisdiction over religious property. But if you step out and you exercise in commerce, they got jurisdiction. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction equal protection of the law. So this is very important. Nor deny any person within its jurisdiction equal protection. So, if you understand how this works, and you understand that you're coming in with your religious exemptions,
Daddy. Yeah. Put me some ice cream.
Wait a minute, girl.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, family. So I want you to understand how to use your religious exemption. How to use, so it says, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction to the equal protection of the law. So, if they can't, under the Constitution, under the First Amendment, make any laws, right? Violating your First Amendment rights, which is automatically a constitutional guarantee. This is evidence right here. We can go right to here. We don't got to reach to no statute. We ain't got to go nowhere. And even if you drop down to the 14th Amendment, and it's talking about this, nor deny any person within his jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. So now we're talking about, right, your religious exemption. It's really that simple, family. It's really that simple. Right? So this is how they talk about, right? So let's talk about this. If you want to come in, anybody who want to come in the panel and ask questions, let me send y'all the link, and you can come in and ask me a question. So I want to put this in the chat where y'all can come in and ask me questions. We got a few minutes. I want to put this. Come on in and ask me some questions, family, real quick. Talking about the law, right? And it's really that simple. A lot of us don't know how to break down the language. So come on in and ask me a question, right? Dealing with religion. Because I just showed you the breakdown. They can't contradict themselves. The First Amendment and the 14th Amendment and the Fifth and all of these other amendments, they can't make laws. So when we talk about um, let's look at the 14-point test. Is anybody gonna come in and come on to the stream yard and ask a question? We got approximately about 10 minutes. Anybody want to come on and ask the question, right? So I'm showing you how the Constitution works. The Constitution, they already tell you in the 14th Amendment, they can't anything that give you equal protection of the law, they cannot strip you of your religious rights. They can't. And they've been doing that through all of these other things. And nobody is suing these businesses. Nobody is suing these institutions because they're trying to get you to come under commerce. This is why we got to establish our institutions so we can be protected. And how to be protected is understanding how to move. This is why you got to understand how to create a religious trust. Nobody want to come on? So let's talk about this real quick before I get out of here. Right? Let me see if I got that. It's a 14-point test. Right? So let me see if I can pull that up. So let me share this real quick. Right. Akano, is you still there? I don't know if you're still there. So we're gonna talk about, right? So I want you to understand, if an organization is part of the traditional recognized religious denominations, then the organization should provide a letter or letterhead stating this is the case. In such instance, the 14-point test is not necessary. Some examples of traditional religious denominations include Southern Baptist, United States Methodists, Presbyterians, Lutherans, Mennonites, um, um, Episcopals, Catholics, Muslims, Jewish, Hindu, and Buddhism. So when you go to the IRS, right? So they tell you what you got to have, and they give you the things that you need to know. So if you have, right, um, if you one thing I'm gonna tell y'all you got to have a physical location of worship. You got to have a physical. If you don't have a physical, you can't use Zoom or none of that. They're going to disqualify you as a religious institution. So you got to have a doctrine. If you're a Muslim, you already got that. If you already got all of these things from the traditional religions, right? The only thing you need now is a physical location. You need a building, a physical location where you can say you congregate, right? Now, if you are like an untraditional, like they said, Scientology, it took a minute for them to recognize Scientology. At first, they didn't recognize, they weren't trying to recognize it. After Scientology was practiced for a while, they gave it recognition. So that is like a religion that was birthed out of. So they recognize Scientology. They recognize certain, like, you know, certain other religions like voodoo practices and stuff like that. They will recognize those things, but you got to have, right, a place of worship. You got to have a physical place of worship. You got to have these things necessary for the IRS to consider you, right, under that. So it says if an organization is not part of the traditional recognized religious domination, then the 14-point test should be administered. While the IRS does not provide specific guidance as how many of the 14 points must be met for an organization to qualify as a church, the BRAFB generally requires that a minimum of 11 be met. This is for this organization. Organizations do not meet the 11 points of the test may nevertheless be eligible. However, this determination must be made by a case-by-case basis by the BRFB managers. And if appropriate legal counsel, the 14-point test should be filed out on the BRAFB membership application. In addition, the application organization should provide a letter on its letterhead to provide the information and explanation list below. So these are the things, right? Does the organization have a distinct ecclesiastical government? Does the organization have a formal code of doctrine and discipline? This is the same stuff that the IRS is going to ask you. Does the organization have a distinct legal existence? Does the organization recognize creed or form of worship? Right? Does the organization have a distinct religious history? Does the organization have a membership not associated with any church or denomination? These are the same questions the IRS is going to ask you. Does the organization have a complete organized ordained minister ministering to their congregation? Does the organization have an ordained minister selected after completing prescribed courses of study? Does the organization have a literature of its own? Does the organization establish a place of worship? You got to, if this is one of the biggest things, if you don't have a place of worship, right, you're not going to qualify. The IRS is going to disqualify you. And also, you cannot, if you got one member, you can't have one member for 5 years. They're going to disqualify you. Your membership and your congregation got to grow. So if you can start off with 2 members, that's fine. But by year 3, you should have 3 or 4 members. By year 5, you should have 5 or 6, 7, 8 members. By year 7, you should have 13 members. You should constantly have an expansion of membership. You can't have the same members. You can't be one member, right? You can start off with 2 members. They in the IRS manual, they say you can start off with 2 members. But what has to happen is those 2 members got to grow. You can't be 2 members for 20 years. That's not going to happen. Does the organization have regular congregation? You got to have all. This is why you got to have church trust minutes. Does the organization have regular religious service? Does the organization have Sunday schools and religious instructions for the young? And does the organization have schools for preparation of its ministers? You have to know this, family. You have to know this, right? This is the stuff that you got to know, right? So when we talking about religion, when you go into that courtroom, they're showing you, right, how to utilize your religious protections, family. They're showing you how to utilize your religious protections. You got to understand this. Do anybody got any questions before we get out of here? I know I started late, but I broke this down so y'all can get it. I just wanted people to see, right? And I'm gonna go over part 2, and I'm gonna recap. I'm gonna have this a little more structured. I had to leave out and go get my wife. I didn't set everything up. I should have had it all done earlier, but I was just because I know this stuff so well, right? So if anybody got any questions, right, you can contact me and reach me out on Facebook, and we can break this down. So, like I said, I showed you how to watch this video and know how to utilize your protections. So this is King L Bay. I'm out. I'm trying to show everybody how to use their religious protection. Peace. I'm out of here, family.